everybody. Dr. Mary Crowley here. I've got Juan Savin on the program today. It's a very significant time in history, I believe, because we're at an appointed time, meaning today at the sundown on the 4th is the beginning of Yom Kippur, which actually God talks about the feasts of God. And so I think it's a significant day that we have Juan on with us. And so anyway, we did have Juan. There he is. He just went black.
There we go.
So anyway, Juan, how are you? You're driving around the country, and I know that you said it's easier to drive sometimes than to get on a plane and fly. So what's going on?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
it's. I was out at the Warren, Michigan event. President Trump spoke there, and then I had stuff in southwestern Michigan, and then stuff in Wisconsin. In fact, I went up and visited with my friend Field McConnell, checked on him, see how he's doing, and had a great day yesterday with him and some other stuff with a project that I've been helping on in northern Wisconsin. And so now I'm headed down to Nashville.
Well, now, Field McConnell, I don't know a lot about him, but he was one of the first people involved in this. Like, how long ago was that when he first came on the scene?
Well, he came into view after 9/11 because he happened to know how these planes were set up, and with the software that had been being incorporated in aircraft for quite some time that allowed for remote operation. It's a remote autopilot configuration, which the pilots in the cockpit weren't even aware of, and had been being incorporated in American aircraft for quite a long time. And so the ability to remotely commandeer an aircraft and control it from outside the aircraft, and the pilots would have no way to override it at all. And so he had become well known for having talked about that after 9/11. And then, of course, we had the Malaysian aircraft, 2 Malaysian aircraft that went missing. And when he was doing the crash investigation stuff for the government of Malaysia, which they had asked him to come over and speak to them about this missing aircraft, Flight 370, in the course of that, he actually even predicted that there would be another aircraft loss if they didn't take any protective measures. And this is almost unknown out there in the world. He actually called the date of that missing aircraft within some of these circles as July 17th. And even on his birthday, which his birthday is actually a couple days ago. And so almost a year in advance, he called the date of the next aircraft. He said, if you don't take care of this problem before then, you'll have another missing aircraft. And he put a 17 on his birthday cake, and reverse 71, because that was when he was 71. And sure enough, that was when flight 17 went missing on July 17th. Kind of a bizarre thing. So,
and what flight was that? What flight was that one?
That was the one that went missing over the Ukraine. They wanted to blame it on Russia and Putin and all that. And one of the things, too, that's not widely known, President Putin was in another aircraft in the area. And so the contention from a lot of the guys behind the scenes is that they were actually trying to take out President Putin's aircraft, and they accidentally shot down this Malaysian aircraft. In this particular case, there's a lot of evidence or indication by various people that that aircraft, when you looked at the wreckage, it was shot down by another aircraft head to head, straight through the cockpit. And so there's all sorts of different stories. I actually happen to believe that that is correct. But you get into this spy versus spy, nation versus nation stuff, and the information that you get is so controlled and mangled and everything else to protect positions of the different governments that they're taking for political reasons, that you really be careful not to get sucked into the latest misinformation thing. Just like with the Nord Stream stuff, there's all sorts of very solid indications that that was a U.S. operation to take out the pipeline. And there's people that are also equally that it was Poland that did it. And of course, Poland had a pipeline that just opened up from Norway to Poland within just a day or two of that pipeline being bombed there on the Nord Stream. So there's all sorts of bizarre nation state level stuff taking place there, and messages being sent. One of the messages that was sent just the other day on Friday that virtually nobody in your audience probably caught, or their similar audiences, but I guarantee you all the major powers are very alert to and aware of what just happened. The commander in charge of Space Force was rotated out and someone else put in, and the commander in charge of Strategic Command, which handles Cheyenne Mountain, was rotated out in a different. Both of those people were rotated into those positions are very, very, very widely understood to be Trump people. So why would that be more significant? Because there's the perception by these foreign governments, whether it's Russia or China, that something's going completely haywire in America. And so they're getting in position for whatever's about to happen here in the United States. And they're not sure who's going to do what, where it's going to go. They're viewing what's going on in America as some type of a coup, maybe even a coup within a coup. If the election was stolen, and that amounts to a type of a coup to put people in power over America that fit one political, which, by the way, people want simple. Oh, just tell me simple. Okay, I'll give you simple. Simple is it's a Rockefeller operation. Now that's just throwing gas bombs in the middle of the room, because then people will go off in all sorts of different directions, and it's you might as well say the Jews did it or something like that. It's the Nazis did it. It's militia. Those are all gaslighting terms, and all of a sudden people have prefabricated mental directions that they go. But at the end of the day, there's been a long-going, by degrees, gathering in of the control mechanisms of government here in the United States, that the Rockefeller broader operation, it's not even fair to say family, but an operation of various players that have coalesced around that original family group, have gotten control of the levers of power within the government of the United States, and have shifted it over from an actual entity standpoint. That's Senior Executive Service that came into being in '79 under Carter, and all those government positions that are run there. Then you go to the other side, and what's the opposition to that? a simple way of saying that, and again, it's gaslighting. It's it's inflammatory. Oh, it's Trump people, or it's MAGA people. It's people beholden to that group. At the end of the day, it's a larger coalition of various factions that have picked a side and are going against some of those operations. So it's a very simplistic way of saying things or term to use, but it is what's going on. So now,
Juan, have you heard about a nuclear Russian submarine that's been missing?
Sure, Doomsday. It's their Poseidon. In our missile systems, in our subs, we have a Poseidon missile. So they created their version of a Poseidon missile. It's literally like Dr. Strangelove with the Doomsday weapon, and they're not actually kidding about it with their Doomsday weapon. In this case, the Doomsday weapon of choice, the flavor of the day, with this submarine, it's the largest submarine that Russia's built. It's the largest submarine in the world, actually. And it has a torpedo that is able to launch. It's actually a series of torpedoes that work together. So it's a system, and it's not, there's various ways to do it, but, it's all classified and all that. But what it does is it creates a type of a shaped charge. In a shaped charge, in various types of munitions, it directs the explosive force. Instead of going in one big circle, it forces the energy in one primary direction. And so if it's going everywhere, it's got a certain value. If it's all going one direction, maybe it would only go a foot if it was going in all directions. If it's going primarily in one direction, it might go 4 feet, okay, or 4 times as far. So a shaped charge is kind of a directed a direction for the energy. So when you do an explosion in the air, air is very soft, and it's like a pillow. And so you do a big explosion, and for example, when we had the Oklahoma City bombing, the truck that pulled up on the street outside of the Oklahoma City building that McVeigh and others, or whoever, McVeigh by himself allegedly, had this, fertilizer bomb. Well, the fertilizer material has a relatively slow ignition rate. And so if you were to kind of mentally visualize it, it goes kaboom. And it takes time for it to develop. It's as it gets oxygen, the flame front expands out from it. And so it's relatively slow. And if it's slow, when it hits something, the energy is spread out over more time and it can absorb the shock. So it's kind of a whoosh. And air doesn't transfer that energy very well. So it ends up being like getting hit with a pillow. But if you then change the material that you're working with, if I'm water skiing going through the air at 35 miles an hour, I can go through the air pretty well. I hit the water. Water's like really hard when you hit the water at 35 miles an hour. I had one of my boats one time, and I hit a wave that had gone by from another boat that I hadn't seen off in the distance. I was going like 120. And so I launched, I went up in the air, and I came back down, nose in, and my boat went from, probably after slowing down in the air to 100 miles an hour. I hit the water at 100 miles an hour and went straight in. And the boat, amazingly enough, it stopped in like a boat length. Very quickly. Wow. And it was very not too fun for me. And
well, your angels probably were there. Your angels,
yeah, they were probably laughing at me for being out there and not seeing that wave. At the end of the day, I was fine.
So with this submarine, though, how can a submarine just get lost? I mean, like a submarine.
Well, hold on. Let me finish this. Then you'll understand the reason why this submarine is so significant. So with the sub, it sends, think of a nuclear bomb going off in the air, and you can see a big mushroom cloud go up in the air and it's floating around up there. And, a lot of the energy, it goes out, but a lot of the energy is lost because it just goes straight up. So its destructive force is more all around in a big circle, and it just blows everything up all around it. And a lot of the energy doesn't go into hitting a bunker. It doesn't go that way. It just goes all sorts of ways and doesn't go very deep. In the water, if you can explode a bomb like a nuclear weapon, it doesn't move air, it moves water. Water is much more dense. So when it hits you, it's far more destructive. Now you're not getting hit by a pillow. You're getting hit by a board. You're getting hit by a metal girder. It's just like me hitting the air at 35 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. No biggie. I can deal with it. Hit water at 100 miles an hour, I got a serious problem. And so this wave that would be created from a nuclear bomb could go out in a circle and cause waves all over the place and tip boats over and run up on the shoreline and break buildings and all that. So if you fire off a nuclear or two away, if you launch it off, it blows up above the water, it might cause a wave that's, 50 feet high or something. And it's got a short wave duration. And so it might go inland, several hundred yards. If you can take all that energy that would go in a big circle, and then because you make an explosion, then do an explosion just beyond it, in the way that they do it, you create a type of a shape charge, and the shape directs the energy primarily in one direction with very little going other directions. And so now you can create a wave that instead of being maybe 50 or 100 feet high and not go very deep inland, you can create a wave that might be 1,000 feet high or a quarter of a mile high, and it'll go inland miles and miles and miles. Well, now you think of a place like Florida. Florida's like got an average height above the ocean level of 6 feet or something. Even in the places that are high, a mountain in Florida is like 12 feet high. So, if you have something that can create a wave that is a quarter of a mile tall, that's a whole different animal all of a sudden. And you have that hit Florida, it's going to go in and it's going to go all the way over to the other side of Florida potentially. It's not stopping, when it gets to, a mile or two in. You could wipe out everything for miles. I look at the storm that just happened with the hurricane, and it caused a surge in the height of the ocean in that area of 12 feet. Well, what happened? Where were most of the deaths? Where was most of the destruction? I have one of the friends that had a very beautiful house there in Florida, and the storm surge came up 12 feet. Well, he had a 2-story house, and the entire first floor of the house was completely flooded all the way to the bottom of the floor on the second story. Well, there's no rivers, there's no, nobody even thought that you get big waves or something, but who would have thought that the ocean would have surged 12 feet over its normal high tide mark and gone all the way inland and with the storm, pushing it and flooded out the whole first floor of his house. I mean, and this is like considered a 500-year storm. Well, the 500-year storm that nobody thought would ever happen. And I remember before this happened, I talked to him and he says, "Nah, we're fine. Our house is built to take these kind of hurricanes. It'll handle a Cat 5. We're not even worried. We're going to stay here." And then Partway through the storm, yeah, we were upstairs in the bedroom hoping it wouldn't go any higher, and we didn't know we were going to make it or not. And you had 101 lives lost, is what they've said. So, because everybody else was thinking the same way. They weren't including this weird dynamic of a high surge of water, 12 feet high, flooding inland, and hitting places that were way off the beach because the water became that high with the tide and with the storm surge. So now think of a submarine that can fire a torpedo or a group of torpedoes and hit a coastline, Florida, New York, places where we have, say, our military fleets parked for maintenance and storage and things like that. How much damage can you do? And with an air burst, when we do the tests looking for nuclear explosions, you see the wind come hitting from a nuclear bomb explosion in the old films, and you'll see them tip the ships over and all that. And they might have radiation all over them, but the ships, a lot of them survive very well, even with huge nuclear bombs. But now, if you have a wave that's a tsunami that might be moving at several hundred miles an hour, and it's a quarter mile tall, you might have a really big aircraft carrier and it'll be in 30 pieces a minute later. You could try to hit it with bullets. You could try to hit it with, bombs and drones and all sorts of stuff, missiles, whatever you want to hit it with, and they can shoot them back down. What are you going to shoot the wave with that's coming at you at 300 or 400 knots and it's a quarter mile high? There's nothing you can do. And the submarine that fired the torpedoes that created the waves is, 500 miles away, 300 miles away.
So this is a Russian nuclear submarine that just kind of vanished. They have no clue where it is right now.
Well, it's the biggest submarine ever built, and if you think we don't have a pretty good clue where it's at, what you're told and what reality is are probably not quite the same. And I have an idea that we have a fairly good idea where it is, and I'd be surprised if we haven't got a pretty good idea where it's at.
Well, Juan, there's a lot of things that are on the horizon right now, and I know a lot of people are concerned and worried. I mean, we see the gas prices. I'm out in California, and it's at $7 a gallon for premium.
Oh my gosh! I better get the hybrid out if I'm going to California. I'm not taking the Bentley.
It's $6.99. It's $6.99. So let's just round it up to $7. And we know what they're doing with the food. We know what they're doing, with a lot of things they're manipulating. But I truly believe that we're at a Red Sea moment because of what I hear. And there's a lot of people in the remnant, and you know what I mean when I say the remnant. There's a group of people that are praying and taking action. And I mean, right now, God is the one that we have to trust, that he says he sits in the heavens and he laughs. So I don't believe the Luciferian satanic regime is going to win. But I do believe there's a lot of people that have died, with this COVID-19, which God actually told me COVID-19 is Christ overcoming victory in disease, Psalm 19. We know it was a bioweapon. We know what they tried to do with that. But now we see, as we come up to this coming midterm, I've heard a lot of different people saying that they don't think there's going to be a midterm. What are your thoughts on that, Juan?
Well, I've probably been leading the parade on that because I said even a year ago, somebody pulled up a Nino interview from August, I think 11th or something of last year, or 4th or something, where I discussed it on his show. And I talked about it even prior to that I didn't believe we were going to have the midterm on time, and that it would, somewhere just before the midterm, they would do something to pause it. Now, part of the context for that statement even then, and it's been reinforced up even to the most recent moments, is that there was this executive order early in the Biden administration in of 2021 that set up a steering committee to look at the 2022 election and things that needed to be done to ensure that the 2022 election was a safe, fair, free, whatever. And so there's been FOIAs that have been done on the executive order and they were denied. And then this executive order released into the public because it was classified. And we've gotten a few little pieces, but we know that groups like Antifa and similar very partisan on the city, the reason they don't want the general public to know about is because, you know, this is a very partisan group that's got the helm for the control of the elections. And something that's come out that is in the public conversation now, about 6 weeks ago, the post office announced created an entirely new division inside the post office to handle mail-in ballots. And so for the 2022 election. But here's the kicker. They announced it publicly 6 weeks ago. It was apparently one of the recommendations from the steering committee. Was put in play. They've been working on it for, you know, probably a year or more just to handle mail-in ballots at the post office. But in reviewing this with personnel from the post office, division appears to be essentially, for all intents and purposes, non-functional. Appears to be non-functional at this point in time. So it's specifically set up for the 2022 election, and then it's not functional yet. And the post office is actually in tough shape right now. I've had my own struggles with the post office on stuff with my books and like that. The post office, one of the people that I was discussing this with just recently, who was a regional management person, and I don't want to get him any hot water. He was saying that within his particular region that he's operating in, he is understaffed at a number of his facilities. He has one employee where he should have four. And that some of the places he's actually in better shape than some of the places where the numbers are even more bizarre than that. Well, it's a federal job and you can, you know, the benefits are excellent and things like that. But the problem is, he says he's still got high turnover because they're hiring a person here and there, and then the idea is they're gonna train him and then they're gonna get somebody else and hire him another one. You know, he could hire 50 people right now. He has the budget for 50 people, yet they don't hire 50 people. They hire 2 or 3, and then they're working them, you know, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and the guys burn out. And so they quit. So as fast as they're getting people in, the people are quitting and going to other places where they get, you know, a little more time off and they're not being worked to death. And there's other stuff. I mean, we were into quite a few other aspects of this, but at the end of the day, it appears that they want some kind of a failure and to maintain that for some reason that they've, you know, known to whomever. But it just it defies logic, especially when you have the budget to hire these people. Go out and hire all of them and start working it, and they don't seem to want to do that. And then you have this division that's been created by executive order to handle mail-in ballot, and yet it's not functional, and it was created just for the 2022 election. So as we get closer to the election, are people going to start complaining that in some of these regions there's problems with the mail-in ballot, and at some point is there some angst and hand-wringing, and we need to pause the election so that we can get this under control, so we can do an all mail-in ballot or a mail-in ballot in certain regions that are in some kind of stress? Are they going to blame conservatives or MAGA people or Trump people for the block parties, the tailgate parties near these drop boxes where the people are monitoring because of what was learned in 2000 Mules and other things, where they want to monitor the people dropping off ballots at the drop boxes, that they're dropping off a ballot, not a dozen ballots. And the other side of the coin is the people that might have been willing to be mules to do all of these drops when nobody was looking, are those same people going to be as ready to do it when you've got billboards around the country? If you participated in taking mail-in ballots and dropping in drop boxes, you know, do you want to be a whistleblower? You realize it's a crime, get on the right side of history, that sort of thing. So with that in mind, you might not have as many people willing to do that as you had before. And so how are you going to pull off the steal like you did before? And so, you know, you had Bill Gates over the weekend, this last weekend, was talking about the fact that he doesn't believe that the election, his belief, say it correctly, he said he believes the election will be contested in the 2022 election, and it will lead to civil war. So whatever's going on in the election period, that people are going to argue over how it went, and that's going to lead to civil war, not to court actions. That's,
well, you know, we've seen
difference.
already, we've seen one from a lot of the other elections. We've talked about this before, Joey. Gilbert, you know, in Las Vegas, my friend Candace Taylor that ran in the primary against Camp. There's so many, Rachel Ham in California. There's so many of these elections that we know that they didn't win, the other people. Like even Mike Lindell.
Okay, so let's dive right in here. Oh boy, now I'll really get myself in trouble. You wanted to go to, you know, watch a NASCAR race, and, you know, is there going to be a crash? Okay, here's the crash. Hope everybody comes out of it one piece. They build the cars really good now. It's just up at one of the racing places where Childress Racing, and they're building these new bodies for the race cars where they're testing them out and everything else. And it is amazing, the complexity and the design to protect the drivers so that they don't have, you know, you can race at the speeds that they do. And if there's something happens, it's bent metal and it's broken, you know, tires and things like that, but it's not loss of life. And so it is actually a good thing. But Joey Gilbert, Joey, they've got the numbers from various ways of analyzing the data, and a number of people have come in and looked at it on this primary race. And it was between there in Las Vegas, Lombardo, and Joey. And of course, I was still am a big supporter of Joey. And we were very comfortable on the numbers that Joey won the election statewide and in Las Vegas. So in Clark County, which is the biggest population area in Las Vegas. Every way that we could look at this, it wasn't just a close. It was a massive, overwhelming victory for Joey. However, we documented also various things that happened where there was mischief and things being done in the way the vote was counted and collected and tabulated and everything else that indicated, you know, theft. So, stolen election. They get into court, and the way that the attorney filed the stuff in the court, he was trying, and I understand the logic. He's a friend. He's a great guy. The attorney decided to keep the case straightforward and simple for the court, and not to convolute it with too much other stuff. Presented a very straight case. The
You mean
court
this is Joey? This is Joey's attorney?
Yes, yes. And so the attorney was trying to keep it as straight and simple and everything else. He had a lot of other data he could have presented that would have taken it all over the place and stretched it out over a long period of time and created appealable issues if the court didn't bring them in their consideration or didn't agree to it. The court didn't agree to it. And then, because there was nothing else of these other things in there, this other data, it was just external data. Look, the data inside the vote count system is the contention was you can't trust it, and but we don't have the stuff inside because it's hard to say it exactly right, but if they're cooked numbers and you go get their, anybody that would help you, the assumption is that they must be in on somehow flipping the numbers. So the only stuff that we really actually have is external observations, computer analysis of the way the vote is, going out and going door to door and verifying how people voted within an area, knocking on doors and things like that, canvassing, and external polling as people left the polling places, things like that. Well, the court didn't feel that they made the case. And in fact, for even bringing a case challenging the vote, Joey was sanctioned and fined personally $250,000. So, it comes right out of his pocket. And you might think, oh, well, he's a big rich guy. Well, he isn't ridiculously rich. He's a successful attorney, but it's not like he's, one of these politician, billionaires. That definitely hurts. And then he was debating whether to go ahead and proceed. But I mean, with those fines and everything else, what are you going to do? And I can tell you from personal knowledge that he was offered a deal before that happened that could have made that all go away. And he said there was a couple of conditions, and he said, no, not happening. So he took it. He took the personal hit.
Well, let me just say too, Lombardo, the guy who ran against Sheriff Lombardo, I mean, just a few days ago, 10/1/2017 was the 5-year anniversary of that shooting, that in Vegas, the shooting that killed.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going there, but go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I just wanted to say, I just noticed that because I study dates, and all of a sudden I looked like 10/1. That was the day that the Chinese Communist Party with Mao Zedong came into effect in 1949, but also the largest mass murder in history was in that Las Vegas shooting. And that's what Lombardo was over. And there was a lot of stuff that was involved with that Las Vegas. That was, I ran into some women that were there. They were actually there listening to the concert. And they said there was shots coming from different areas all over the place.
Well, for example, one of my good buddies, let me just do this 1 second. One of my buddies who was the executive producer for one of the radio figures that was a national figure, was there. And he wasn't at the concert. He was there in the area of the concert, and other people that he was there with his motorhome just down the road, and people that were parked right beside him had gone to the concert. And so he was an observer, but from a little bit of a distance, which is useful because he had perspective over the area that people that are right in the crosshairs might not have had. And so we talked extensively about that at the time, and the things that didn't fit. One of the things that, came out of that, the emergency room admissions for injured people in Las Vegas was no higher on that night than any other, average night of the year. So how do you have all those deaths? Everybody got hit, died. Really? That's not the way it generally works. You have all sorts of injuries. You only had a couple people that survived and had injuries in the hospital. There's all sorts of bizarre things there. And then the Saudi Air Force was there in town doing what we call a red flag and training. They were there for a month. And in the course of all that, you had the son of the king there in Saudi Arabia who was there for that training event. And he had gone to a nearby casino without letting anybody know. He kind of could put on his little bit of change his look, and a security detail went out a back door from that location where they were at, and they didn't tell anybody. And so he wasn't there on that upper floor when that happened. And the reason that was relevant was because the shooting was probably a cover for a hit on him, and when it didn't go down the way they planned, there's all sorts of mischief that happened, including the guy that supposedly was the shooter then dies at that location. Well, and oh, by the way, he'd been working as a CIA pilot for a lot of years in the South Pacific. And so there's all sorts of bizarre mischief there. But let me come back to the original conversation. So Joey Gilbert has this primary against Joe Lombardo, the sheriff that was the sheriff there from the October 1st stuff and over Clark County and like that. And in the course of doing this, it appears that the election was stolen away from Joey. And then when they go to court, I and my staff had actually advised a different legal maneuver for Joey to address this election issue, but they chose the route that they did, and I understand that completely. We felt that we had a better option, but they chose one, and they had the money to do it because they had a person, Bob Beatles, that was going to pay the money, and so they went their route. I mean, look, everybody has to make a choice. They made the best, most informed choice they could, and went forward. It's easy to, in retrospect, second guess them. I felt the other option had better ways that it could come out for them, and we were concerned about the sanctions and the fines, and the court did exactly what we were concerned about. That said, then you have a picture as this is going on. Joey just announced today that he's not going to, or maybe yesterday, that he was not going to continue to fight the case with the fines and everything else. That, it was clear the court wasn't wanting to hear this and wouldn't consider it. And they made it clear with their fines and calling it frivolous and like that, that it just wasn't, they weren't on winning ground. So with that in mind, I'm out with, in the Trump rally in Warren, Michigan. One of my candidates in my candidates coalition, Christina Caramo, is there. She's endorsed by President Trump, and along with others there in Michigan, they're fighting a heck of a fight. It's just, Michigan is just unbelievable, the fight that's going on there. And President Trump comes in, he says in his speech, they're getting ready to arrest me, which is true. And they want to arrest him, is his exact words. And then he also says that 2020 was stolen. Well, he said that also in writing at his Truth Social site 3.5 weeks ago or so. He says, I won, put me in the presidency now, or put me on the 2022 ballot, I'll win. And so President Trump, for all intents and purposes, the best way of saying it is he's an election denier, because he's denying that the results that were voted on by Congress and that have been put out to the American people are accurate or true. There's a fraud going on. one of the biggest fraud locations in the country to help flip the vote. And the reason why I've been in the fight as I have all the way back to 2022 or 2020 election, where I actually helped subsidize.
Juan?
Lose you there?
Yeah, I lost you for a minute. One of the reasons we'll have to cut this out. One of the reasons you got to start up, pick up from that line. One of the reasons you got back into it.
One of the reasons that we did what we did, that I did what I did there in Nevada, was because it was clear that there was something wrong with the way the vote was counted in Nevada. And so I'm an election denier, 2020. Trump's an election denier, 2020. Joey is an election denier. All of those people around him, we think he won decisively. So what happens? On Saturday, Lombardo, this candidate that Trump endorsed, and it's been very painful to myself and many others, Trump endorsed this candidate, Lombardo, the sheriff of Clark County when he ran for governor of Nevada. There's serious problems as far as I'm concerned with him as a candidate, but more importantly, he's benefiting from a vote that appears to have been fraudulent by all the measures that we can have. The only thing is the courts have decided that it's frivolous to bring a case, and they disagreed. So, let it go. But in President Trump's stuff, the courts have decided all of his cases are frivolous too. So Trump's a denier of what the courts have said. He's in the same boat as Hillary is. He's in the same boat going back to 2020 as Jim Marchand, my candidate in the coalition of candidates from Nevada, first candidate I worked with before forming the candidates coalition and then the election integrity forums. So, which are the largest in the country. So all of a sudden, Trump endorses Lombardo, just flummoxed people all over the place when he gave that endorsement months ago. Exactly when Joey was actually meeting with contributors in Vegas who'd flown out that wanted to help him out to try to, get him in there. And the announcement was made literally as Joey was getting ready to take the stage and talk with all these people that had flown in, and just took the air right out of his campaign. It was just very bizarre.
Had Joey ever met with President Trump as a potential?
Nope.
Okay.
No. And while there was entreaties to do that, the other side of the coin is there was not an understanding of Nevada, and I and others had encouraged the people around the president, stay neutral. You don't understand Nevada, and you don't understand the West. It might be best to just step back and stay out of the way. And so then Lombardo on Saturday, he's being interviewed, or he's doing a candidates debate between the current governor of Nevada, Sisolak, and himself. And when he's asked about the 2020 election, he says that no fraud occurred, he's not aware of anything in the vote count or anything that was wrong, and so he's not an election denier, and he's not on board with that. Well, he's clearly trying to kiss up to the Democrat base, etc. But now, he's the beneficiary of what clearly appears to be vote fraud, but the court doesn't agree, so maybe he's not wrong to say that. And I get from his perspective where he can say that. But then he also went against Trump. Well, I know Trump says that there was problems in Nevada, but I'm not aware of any, and I don't think that that's good. We need to move on, etc. Okay, he's a Trump-endorsed candidate who just told you that Trump's full of shit and nothing went wrong in Nevada. And everybody that says that something went wrong in Nevada, they're full of shit. And that's the guy that Trump's endorsing. And he's the guy that's the beneficiary of what appears to be a very cooked vote in Nevada. How's that fit? Why is Trump endorsing the guy who says that there's no problems with the way the vote is conducted in Nevada? But Trump himself says that his election was stolen and that there's all sorts of problems nationally with the whole vote. That's wrong. Something is a disconnect there. Now, do I put it straight to President Trump, or do I put it to people around President Trump who are giving him wrong input, wrong advice? Go with the law and order guy. And by the way, there was serious money that came in to back Lombardo. And so with that serious money and a sheriff and all that, well, maybe it does look like he could win. And, they've got a particular plan. You can't get totally on President Trump as though he should know every single race in the country perfectly. Then again, there's only 50 states, and of those states, there's only a half of them that are having gubernatorial elections. And there's only a percentage of those that are in play. You should really know this stuff, and it's painful that a guy that does not support President Trump on one of his most crucial positions, where President Trump he's going to war, is at war right now over the entire situation for the 2020 election. This is all coming down to election 2020. People think we're just sailing into 2022. We're still fighting over 2020. I said in my book, page 71, election 2020 will equal MAGA, Make America Great Again. You've heard that over and over here just recently. The election deniers. MAGA to the third power, which is cubed, over corn. Well, who's the corn? The corn is these people that are out of the intelligence agencies when we send guys to learn how to be deep cover people and work undercover and like that, we send them to the farm. And when they're done learning how to work in these deep cover situations, they're a farm product. What's the biggest farm product in America? Corn. If I'm dealing with people from other countries, we have different terms for them because they're their own kind of farm product. But the corn here is people like Zuckerberg, who are a manufactured item. He's a creation of DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Program. And the whole Facebook thing was created as LifeLog, and it's a militarized social media platform. And that's just a figurehead running it. And who's the person's pulling the strings behind the scenes? Entities that have got control, intelligence, industrial media, America, that are managing the way we look and see the world and think, etc. And ultimately, various entities and organizations out of the Rockefeller operations here in America.
Well, now, Juan, as we're coming to almost an hour, you're kind of breaking up a lot, but in reference to coming up, I've got about another 15 minutes. I have another show I've got to jump on, and I know you're got something else coming up too. You had brought up a date. I've seen you on Nino several times. I love Nino. In fact, he was great at Reckoning Fest. He was there. You were there. It was great. And everybody, Juan stayed until 4 a.m. One of my friends from Chicago, Vicky, literally helped Juan, until 4 a.m. With these book signings and things. I think Jennifer wasn't feeling well. A lot of things was going on, but there's a promo code too. We can go. Jennifer Mack, you had said that there's a 20% off on something at her store. So what is that? We have it all ready to go. What is that? The store that people can get right now, Juan?
Oh, she's got a book pack that she's got of my book that is Kid by the Side of the Road, second edition. She's got I think a 10 pack or something there. And I didn't really get a chance to look at it. I'm on the road, but we're getting ready for the third edition to come out. We're trying to make a little bit of room for those third editions in the storage there. And so she put together a package with a couple of things, and that's just sale till the 15th of October. And
Well, we have it up on the screen. It's the jennifermac.com, discount code JMAC20, get 20% off at the checkout. But look at that beautiful sunset. It is sundown right now. We're coming into Yom Kippur. I mean, I think this is prophetic. Right now that you're driving the sun, you can see this beautiful sunset. And as as we're wrapping up this show, today, Yom Kippur, I mean, I'm a, minister. I'm a journalist. I, do a lot of different things. I'm out here in Hollywood. I'm my movie, Freedom, Crime, Sex Trafficking in America. We're going to be screening it in Georgia, November 12th. We're trying to finalize the venue. I think it might be at the Governor's Gun Club. And Candace Taylor, a number of people will be there. Stu Peters is going to show his film, These Little Ones, which Nancy Schaefer was a state senator in 2004 to 2008. They tried to say her husband, Bruce, of 53 years, they'd been married, that they tried to say he shot her in the back and then killed himself by shooting himself in the chest. And so I'm saying that the investigation needs to be reopened. The GBI that came and said that, it was murder-suicide. There's information that we've received that somebody said that clearly a state senator was murdered in Georgia. Is 12 years. So there's justice that's coming for, and the thing is, we're not afraid. See, I'm not afraid to talk about trafficking. I'm not afraid to talk about CPS. I'm not afraid to talk about any of these things because I believe we're at a Red Sea moment. So you brought up about October 29th. I've heard you say this. And, you could go, we have 10 minutes left. You can go wherever you want on this one. But I know, of course, everybody always wants to hear some type of hope. I heard the words, we need to brace ourselves. But I also believe that we've already won. Jesus, when he died, he said it is finished. So, these satanic Luciferian rings that we're seeing and what they're doing, these bloodline families, I believe there's going to be a great harvest, and we have to have room to bring in the harvest. We have to have time. The 8 billion people almost on the planet. So what are your thoughts wrapping up the show today, Juan? What you can tell people kind of to prepare, but what's coming in the next month or so?
Well, the firm date, and to go back where we began a little bit, the firm date is November 8th. That's the date for the 2022 midterm election. I believe that we're not going to have the election on time. For example, Bill Gates, with his statements, it appears what he's saying is that even after the election happens, it's going to be contested. And so the results aren't going to be finalized somehow. And therefore, that's going to lead to some type of civil war. One way or another, there's some kind of a problem with the 2022 election that's going to lead to social unrest. Because if you don't have the election on time, you're going to have some pretty annoyed, pissed off, angry people. If you do have the election on time and it's being contested, well, you got some upset people. And if either one of those is right, I would say both Gates and myself were correct, even if we came at it slightly different. I've said very precisely, I believe that the date that, even though it may be talked about before the 29th of October, the actual date where the decision is paused, we're not going to have the election on time, is October 29th. And that will lead to some type of civil, angst. And there may be military put out before then or at that time that ultimately I think there's some type of a flip. I've described it a little bit in detail, but the short version is where control goes from SES, Senior Executive Service, over to the guys that have a military side of this in certain types of moments, such as a WMD or a nuclear attack. And that's the guys still locked up in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex system, which is Strategic Command and the NORAD system. That said, I could be off by a week. I could be off by more than a week. I don't think I'm off by a month because the November 8th thing is only 10 days after the date I'm saying. And I think it leads to a very serious situation within the U.S. government and the people. If you then go back and say, well, okay, what other things could happen that might be a different kind of a reason for the vote not to happen on time? Well, if the post office isn't able to work right, that would be something. If if they can't get the post office working right for the mail-in ballot, do they say we have to pause it while we get this working right because there's some areas in the country that can't vote fairly? Mega people or intimidating them coming to the drop boxes? Do they say that there's some kind of weather event or a once in a lifetime event, or even we've had airports doing evacuation drills, and everybody's evacuation from a whole point of view. So what's going on there? Somebody anticipating something? Is there some threat we may not be aware of right now out there? It's hard to say. I can make several scenarios. Is it, some kind of a nuclear showdown, which I myself have talked about that before this is over, there's going to be a Cuban Missile Crisis type of event. And that's going to be the finals where if we go into a nuclear alert, literally if the air raid siren is going off, then the computer systems at all these federal agencies, such as FBI and DEA, FEMA, Homeland Security, etc., they scram to a safety position where all of their data and control of those computers and data shift over to the Cheyenne Mountain Strategic Command system. And I sometimes say Strategic Air Command because that's the old way it was called, and it's become Strategic Command. So just anyway, I'd certainly say that it was a mistake on my part, just my old days, and that's the way I think of it and remember it before it got changed. So then you look and you dial in, well, how could that be that big of a deal? Look, Russia and China are wringing their hands right this second, looking at the instability, what they interpret as instability in the American political system. They're looking at this and they're seeing Trump saying they're going to arrest me, potentially. They want to arrest me. And then they see other people saying Trump's coming back in power. And then they see these challenges within the military. What just happened last Friday? You had the commander of Space Force and the commander of STRATCOM, Strategic Command, running Cheyenne Mountain, both changed in the same day on Friday. Every military and government in the world is watching that going, what in the world is going on over there, and who's in charge? Well, the guys that were put in charge there, they both happen to be understood to be Trump people. Well, if you're Biden, if you're Congress, and you can't control to get one of your guys in charge there, who's really in charge? Who's really in charge? And they see if the election is a stolen election, like President Trump says, and then they see the military, where there's a faction of the military that seems to be going pro-Trump, They're going, okay, so one was a big coup, and now are they having another coup? Are they getting set up for a coup? And if the U.S. military is involved in the pipeline attack, which there's a lot of pretty good evidence, I think, that shows that that's the likely answer, then is that something that the Trump people would have done or something the Biden people would have done? They see internal chaos in America, and then these other countries are getting positioned to be ready, brace themselves for whatever comes. Why? Because if you get, let's say that we skip over Harris, go straight to Pelosi, or even if Harris gets in there, they want to have a hardline China policy that makes them look like they're, going to keep China under control. What are they going to do to show a hardliner policy towards China? What sanctions or taxes or other stuff is come to them to show who's the big dog here? And so is it going to be military? Same thing with Russia. What would we show towards Russia over the Ukraine with a change in command at the presidency? 25th Amendment's on the table. When Biden's making bizarre statements, and now Harris too, about backing North Korea and their ally and like that, she doesn't know that most rudimentary thing about the Korea conflict, and she's in South Korea when she says it. What kind of a nitwit are we dealing with here? So these other governments are looking at this, and they're like wringing their hands. They need some of that Nino hand cream because they're sweating bullets. What in the world is going on in the United States of America at this point in time? Who is in charge there? Have the lunatics actually taken over the asylum? Yes, and the parking lot. Okay, so then you come back the other direction and you say, when's this going to come to a head? Well, the election is a certain date. We know that the election, if it goes off as scheduled on November 8th, something's going to change. Somebody's going to win. It's leaning towards the MAGA and Republican side at this point in time, and even in the Democrats' understanding. So then let's go the other direction. If the Democrats see this as going one direction, they want to stop it or pause it, because that's how they got the 2020 elections. They paused it overnight at 2:30 in the morning until they could get the count right, and then they started up again 4 hours later. Well, this time you don't wait till the election day or the night after. You stop it beforehand. They've got energy in place. I believe they're going to shut down the election before November 8th. They're going to say that they need to pause it because of threats towards the people with their mail-in ballot stuff, the drop boxes, etc. They want to finish what they got to do at the post office and come back 30 days later and do it. Well, you can't do that. Yeah, we just had to change presidents with the 25th Amendment. The country's distracted. We need to take a pause for the good of America. You got Bill Gates saying that there's going to be so much angst that you're going to have a civil war in America. So we need to stop civil war in America by pausing the election. We can come back in 30 days. No problem. We can do that. If you pause this election 30 days, in a perfect world, I don't believe you get it restarted and have the vote on time. Too many players, too many legal issues, too many bizarre directions. You don't get to have it for 6 months to a year in a perfect world once you pause it for 30 days. So then you go, well, what are the things that we don't know? You don't know if foreign situations outside of the United States, forget the vote. What if this situation in the Ukraine suddenly heats up to the moon, or China, seeing instability inside the American system, says, you know what? The best opportunity we're ever going to have to invade Taiwan and take control is while the U.S. is in some kind of a naval contemplation, looking for lint in their navel, while we switch commanders and politicians and have some election fraud issue or whatever. Let's go take Taiwan while they're screwed up. And Russia's, we're not taking this crap anymore in the Ukraine, and they do their little thing. All of a sudden, external situations or a financial crisis. Suddenly, the devil, when he was testing Job, uh, it was said that while the first messenger was still speaking, telling him this horrible thing happened, the people invading his property and stealing his cows, another horrible thing happened. Another enemy was stealing the grain, and another horrible thing happened, and his kids have all been killed. So each time while the messenger was still speaking, is America October, Red October, when all of these things, a lever gets pulled and then another level and another lever. And all of a sudden, the word is, look, we got to pause the election. We got so many things on the plate. We can't have a fair, honest, even election. We just need to pause while we deal with all these crises going on in America. And we'll come back to the vote in 30 days or something. I think that's quite plausible. And the date that I believe that would be the date that fits, because these people are slaves to the numbers, to the ritual. They like their symbology, their numerology, and their archaeology. I mean, their astrology. So they like, the stars to line up. They like the numbers to line up. They like all the right symbols, pictures in the scenario. So the date that works for me as being the most likely is October 29th to pull that switch. I could make a case for several other dates, a week either way. You get out past that, it just seems less and less likely to me that it works because of the idea of pausing the election 2 days before the election. That just doesn't quite make sense, or that the people would go along with that. But it could be. Maybe they pause it the day of the election or say that there's problems in the way the election is done. We got to do a do-over if they think they're going to lose or something. Either side. So I think we're coming into a high drama moment. Finally, what can't we know? It's just like Gettysburg. I've used this example several times. Both sides, the North and the South, were coming to that area, and they knew they were coming to a fight. The commanders knew they were about to engage each other. And both of the commanders in the conversations and notes after the fact believed that they would engage somewhere around the 3rd or the 4th. But on the 1st, one group trying to get dug in at one location and another group trying to look for a place to dig in happened to encounter each other, exchanged fire. One of them had cannon and started lighting off cannons, and next thing you know, they're in a full-blown engagement. But the unknown, unplanned for factor that nobody could have seen beyond even them having a chance encounter was that the wind was blowing in an unusual direction that day. It was blowing to the northeast. And so, or northwest, I should say. And so as the wind was blowing, it blew right at the Union troops. And Union troops could hear the cannon and gunshot as far away as 20 miles. And they came running. While the Confederate troops, as close in as a mile away, just over the hill, didn't hear a thing. So it was an act of God type of a moment where just the direction of the wind, an unseasonable wind, the Union troops about a 3-hour advantage in getting to the battlefield and engaging and in channelizing the battlefield in their favor against the Confederate troops. We at this moment in what's happening in the country, if I am correct, and we're looking at essentially a coup from the 2020 elections, which is now being challenged coup against the original coup leaders, being led by the guys in the Cheyenne Mountain Strategic Command, NORAD command system, where two commanders were just changed for the whole world of the intelligence and kings and presidents and everybody to see, to show who came into power. It wasn't done because you needed to change things because the people did anything wrong. They were lateral to other positions. It was to show that the people favorable to Trump are still in control of the nuclear arsenal and the WMD capability, and that nothing from the Biden administration side or from the Pentagon side could steal that power away. So everybody hold tight, prepare yourself, get ready. You're about to have an engagement, and I would say that it's kind of a Gettysburg soft engagement type of a thing, where these two groups, hidden right in plain sight in America, are about to engage, and we're going to see who is going to be able to control the direction that the country goes. Remember, Gitmo is still being built out right this second. And I've said numerous times, if the Biden administration is actually in control, if Congress and Pelosi are actually in control, just call down there to the base commander, tell them, give the guys the weekend off. We have all the fuel you want and free hot dogs, and popcorn, and everything. Go ahead and take all of your Jeeps and your troop carriers and the tanks and whatever construction equipment you have. Make a figure-8 racetrack out of that place. Go knock it all down and give awards for who's able to knock the building down the coolest way. Okay, just tear it all down. Get rid of Gitmo. We don't need it anymore. They've all said they want to get rid of it. Biden said 1,000 times, I want to get rid of Gitmo. Pelosi said, I want to get rid of Gitmo. Well, if you're in charge, get rid of it. But obviously, they haven't been able to get rid of it. In fact, we had 2 new courtrooms, prefab, that were delivered a couple of weeks ago. They're slated for completion in their assembly by October 15th. 2 new courtrooms. We have a new evidence area that's all built out, totally secure, so that evidence of a confidential neighbor type can be shown and examined by defense attorneys in a secure environment to prepare defense for their clients. Gitmo has a huge world-class hospital that's been built over the last several years that is, its specialty is the care of geriatric patients. They expect people to be there, if they're not showing up in their old age, to be staying there through their old age and not going anywhere. Who's in charge here? I'm telling you that there's a type of a conflict in America. Who's going to run the country? 2020 isn't over. The results of that are not over, and you have to stop it before the next play. It's the red flag moment in the NFL. The coach has to throw the red flag before the next play starts, or it doesn't matter. The next play is 2022.
Well, Juan, thank you so much for coming on. Well, and we're running out of time because I have to be on another broadcast. But let me tell you this, Juan, thank you for coming. I have Jennifer Mack, the jennifermack.com. Please use her promo code JMack20 to get 20% off. Like I said, I saw Juan, basically signing books, autographing books till 4 a.m. Spend time with every single person, several minutes with each one. That's why it took so long. And so Juan is the real deal. We are all praying. Marshall, if you could put up on the screen, Juan, I launched the People's Prayer Network up in Idaho when I was speaking at Reawaken. God told me there wasn't enough prayer. That's one thing that we all need to do. People go, what can I do? Juan, you had said that some people were saying, what can I do? People were asking. Well, what they can do is they can pray. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, as I close with this, the Bible says, if my people called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek his face and turn from their wicked ways. That's the last thing. Turn from their wicked ways. He said, then I will hear from heaven and heal their land. You guys can sign up for 15 minutes. It's all about our country. We're praying for the country, not anything about my ministry, anything. It's about the country. So as we close out this broadcast today, it's Yom Kippur. It's the Day of Atonement, the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar. It's a day that literally everybody looks introspectively and said, what have I do for the coming year? And so I believe that as we pray, get on our knees and pray for our country, pray for President Trump, pray for our troops, pray that we're going to see a great turnaround, just like Juan was talking about Gettysburg. You know, God did a sign where he brought that wind. It shifted. The winds of change are here. And, you know, as we come up, even as this month, you know, Halloween, people look at Halloween, you know, it's like the devil's holiday. But do you know on October 31st, it was the Great Reformation when Martin Luther tacked the 95 Theses on the door of the chapel of Wittenberg and a Reformation began. I don't look at it as Halloween. I don't celebrate Halloween. I celebrate the Reformation. We're at the time of a great movement, which is here. So please pray, take action, and let's believe that the best is yet to come.